Yeah, so it's the Wednesday and Thursday next week, the 21st and 22nd. As I'm looking this up, this will be in Charlotte because everything for the ACC is always in North Carolina. I don't even know why I had to scroll up on that page but yeah, so Miami obviously will have a contention going. Some conferences are doing 2 players and the coach. ACC is doing 3 players and the coach. So Manny Diaz will be there. Bubba Bolden, your starting safety, number 21, he's going to be there. Mike Harley, your 60-year senior wide receiver from Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas. And, of course, quarterback, number 1 in your hearts and number 1 in your program, De'Aaron King from Manville, Texas, will be Miami's representatives for that. And I think that that's a strong group, honestly, of guys who have done things at Miami. De'Aaron King is one of the handful best quarterbacks returning in college football. Mike Harley has really developed over time using his speed really well and kind of growing his technique. And so, yeah, Mike Harley has developed. He's the guy who could be a borderline 1,000-yard receiver, although I do think that Charleston Rambo will be ahead of him in terms of receiving yards this year. But, again, he's another strong performer who has, been here and done things. And so is Bubba Bolden, second team All-ACC last year. Preseason should be first team All-ACC coming back this year. So those 3 guys, along with Manny Diaz, going to ACC kickoff is a strong group for Miami. We've always, the roster has not necessarily been as deep from 1 to 85 as Alabama or anything, but Miami's always had really great representatives for the ACC kickoff events over the course of time because the top of the roster has the kind of talent that we need in Miami. And again, you're showcasing that with those guys. I do just want to say really quickly that I believe it is funny to me that Florida State is taking 2 guys who have never played a snap for them and their backup quarterback. So you have Jordan Travis, who's played snaps for them, competitive snaps for Florida State. So he's the one, but he's the backup. Then you got Mackenzie Milton, who was not going to ever play again after that catastrophic injury at UCF. He's going. And then Jeremiah Johnson, who transferred in. So you have 2 guys who've never, they're new. They've never worn the Garden and Gold at all. And then you got another guy who's a backup, and he had that incredible falling, stumbling pass over his shoulder that Jalen Phillips tipped and picked off in that beatdown last year, and then he had that, he was like crawling off the field because he got wrecked on that play as well. So, yeah, you have 2 basically replacement level quarterbacks, and then including Mackenzie Milton, because I don't know that he's going to necessarily be who he was coming off the catastrophic injury. That's why I say that now. Okay. And then including Milton and Johnson, 2 guys who have never played a snap for Florida State. But those are the guys that you're going to put up wearing the Garden and Gold to be the spokespeople for Florida State University and the Seminole football team at ACC kickoff. I think that that's kind of funny. But then again, if you look at the roster, who else are you going to pick? Dante Lucas? Nah, we're good.
The reason I threw up the 3 fingers as soon as you went to the Florida State route in regards to representation at ACC kickoff is that, as you stated, I also, in extending to that, last night on our Florida State show, as soon as it was brought up, okay, who's going to ACC kickoff, my initial response was, those are 3 transfer players. Those aren't even 3 players that you initially signed in the program and have come through the program and contributed. And to your point, 2 of them have not contributed anything to date.
Right.
That's non-selection because usually the choice is, okay, we're going to grab a combination of our best players, but also guys that have some equity in the program, that have helped build where we are right now. Our leaders are good program players, not to disparage their talent, but they've built something here. They've done something. They've represented the school and the university and the program well. And it's kind of that combination that brings us to those selections typically where the coaches go. But for this Florida State team, they take 2 guys that have been on campus for a couple months.
Yeah, and it's but again, I just typed really quickly. I'm looking at their roster. Who else are you going to bring? Emmett Rice, maybe, the linebacker? Okay, maybe.
Amari Gaynor. He's a really good player. Amari Gaynor?
Gaynor, yeah. Okay, Gaynor, 33. Yeah, okay. I would have taken Gaynor. But then again, you want the curious decision for me is taking Jordan Travis, to be perfectly honest.
He's not a good quarterback.
He's not. He's not a quarterback. Put him in wide receiver, put him in slot, put him at offensive weapon and move him around a little bit. Not necessarily that he's going to be the fastest guy at a multi-positional kind of a thing, but he's not a quarterback. He can't throw the ball. And hey, that's fine for me, like do that and be as you are, but like, when you play against Miami and then we see what happens. But like, that's the curious choice for me. And I guess maybe that's the one where it's like he has some equity in the program because he's actually taken snaps and gotten beaten up behind that terrible sieve of an offensive line and everything. But it's funny that you brought up that it was a transfer. I forgot that he actually signed with and went to Louisville before he came over to Florida State and everything. But yeah, that one's the curious one for me. Jeremiah Johnson come from the SEC. All right, he's going to be your transfer portal level top line player. Mackenzie Milton, yeah, he came over this year from UCF, but then again, you're 2 years removed from the last time that we saw him play, and he's still been on a Alex Smith like rehab from a pretty catastrophic, nasty knee injury. I mean, Alex Smith was bone and leg, but so maybe not all the way there, but similar kind of a thing. So we have no idea what he's going to look like. And again, that offensive line is probably going to be very similar to what they were, maybe a little step better, but they still got a couple mango seasons till they're like good all along the offensive line and everything. But yeah, I find it curious that you take two quarterbacks, because it would have been one thing if you had three players going to ACC kickoff. And let's hypothetically, Clemson 3 years ago, right? If there were three players going, you say, okay, look, we're going to take Kelly Bryant, we're going to take one of the defensive linemen, and we're going to take Sunshine because he's the number one recruit in America. And like, this is a guy who we want you to know now because he's that guy. That would be one thing. That is not a comparison to the talent at Florida State, a quarterback that they're bringing. And you know what they say, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And I saw a couple of people who were saying that Florida State's going to look at playing both of them extensively. So like a full dual quarterback system between Milton and Travis this year. I would like to see that happen. Sorry, I'm talking a lot about Florida State just because I'm dunking on them over and over again. But
yeah, we will end this Florida State segment here in just a second. But I will say that in last night's Florida State show, and this is going to be a question that I'm going to pose you concerning Miami. I had not thought of it until now. I'm going to come up with, I've got a question that I'm going to pose you at some point here during the show. Because for me, for Florida State, if somebody would say to me, God Almighty would say, Mark, you can ask one question concerning Florida State football, the results of this season, and I will give you an answer. What is the most telling statistic or fact that you can ask today that will give you a read on Florida State's season? I made the statement, I posed it to our panel, and then I said, for me, it's how many games did Mackenzie Milton start and finish?
Okay.
That was my question for the Florida State. So you keep that in your back pocket for Miami in regards to if you could ask a question to have it answered from on high, that we would know the answer today concerning the season. That's not something obvious, like how many games are they going to win? Something that's going to indicate where they're headed, that gives you the best indication of how the season concluded